When I was in college, I was swimming. So we went to Heather Farms, I think with Eric and my dad, and I was in really good swim shape. She had it in her mind that we were going to race. So when we organized a race, I was like, Grandma, are you serious? You really want to race? She said, I'm serious. This is something I want to do. And I remember getting ready. I was on the wall, and I looked in her eyes, and she was going to win that race. She was going to try her damnedest. That's what she did, and everything she did, and that's just what we've all talked about. But so we pull out of the wall, and I'm taking it maybe half speed, and she is plowing through that water. But she's got to be 65 years old. Well, halfway through the race, she starts slowing up. She had torn a ligament in her shoulder. I felt so. Either that or it was some sort of a sprain. But by the time she got to the wall, she said, "Well, was I close?" And I said, "Well, Grandma, you won that race." She believed it for a second, but then the look in her eyes, she was proud that I could swim, and she was very athletic and competitive. And I think for my family, that was a big deal, and I think she was really proud. But I felt so bad when she got out of that pool, nursing that shoulder. And how she is, she wouldn't admit it. So it's like, well, I'm fine. I can't lift my arm to shake your hand. So that's one of my many memories of Elva, and she'll be missed in all her endearing.
I'll tag on to that a bit. But my memory of Grandma is, she certainly was competitive. There's no arguing that. But she also would bend over backwards to indulge Brett and me for whatever reason. She, I don't know, she took great pleasure in doing that, and it manifested itself in many different ways. But one time in particular, I remember our trips out to Ohio. They actually were some of the best memories of my childhood. Brett and I would go out, give my parents a break, and she would willingly take care of us. And one time we wanted to go to Cedar Point. It's that amusement park out there. So she made the big mistake of agreeing to take us there without having an upfront agreement on when we would return. And we got there at about 9 in the morning, and blink your eyes, 12 hours later, we're kind of limping back to the car. And she never once said, "It's time to go." The only reason we were leaving is because the place was closing. And she, 12 hours later, I don't know if Grandpa Harold was too happy with that. And another way she indulged us, I remember that same trip, Brett and I were just fascinated with turtles and being outdoors, and so she took us on a swamp tour of Huron, Ohio, and we're going to all these different swamps, going in the water looking for turtles, and sure enough we get a few turtles, and what good is that going to do us if we're going back to California? So we enlist her in what I call the Great Snapping Turtle Smuggle of 1978. She was a willing accomplice. She got the turtles in her pockets. Grandpa, again, was like, "What are you doing?" And she gets the snapping turtles in her pockets, and we go through security. We have our bags go through the x-rays, but sure enough, she gets us onto that plane with our turtles, and we get home with our turtles in hand. And it's funny, because Brett and I guess maybe in our way wanted to reward her for all her indulgences, and so a few years ago we had some crazy idea to do that by dragging her through Disneyland. She's 25 years later at 88, there she is with us, still indulging us, and I just will always remember her for creating some of the most wonderful memories of my life. And she was a good, wonderful grandmother. Miss her.